Hello and welcome to SQL Features. Today we are going to cover a topic which I've been planning to do it for some time, and since in the last series we did the SQL in a container, I thought we'll add Grafana to that picture and take a look at it, how you could easily create a Grafana container and connect it to SQL and create a very basic metric dashboard. So you can try it out your own. Let's get going. Before we start, some housekeeping. You could see this is the repository where you can download all the codes. Today we'll be looking into the 43 episode. For Grafana, there is a Docker Compose file and make file. And now let's go to Visual Studio. The same thing is there. And now if this is your first time following this process and you want to do this, then you might want to do a virtualization. Git clone commands exactly like that. And if this is something you have done before and you're following me on this series, then you could run these 3 lines to refresh your code. With that, let's get going. I will connect to it. We see Docker PS. We can very clearly see that Grafana is already running because this is my test environment. So we're going to get rid of it. So let's get out of this environment. And today I'll show you how to do the rollback for this environment so that we are back to the point of PostSQL installation. Let's connect to the PROXMOX server. Now let's look at what all snapshots we have. You can see PostSQL is there, but we already see the Grafana is installed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll back to the start of this PostgreSQL, and you will see that this will shut down the virtual machine as well. And when you are following this thread, you don't need to run this command. You'll be basically checking. You will have the pre-SQL snapshot, which we created in the previous session, and then you'll be creating a snapshot with PostSQL, and after that we'll exit. So snapshot is rolled back to the state. Now VM is down, so we will just start the VM. VM is up now. I will give it about a couple of minutes for it to start. So I'm going to exit from PROXMOX server and connect to the VM. First thing, we're going to pull the Docker container for Grafana. This is a one-time activity. Let's do it. For this particular session, you don't need to do it. Once you run the Docker file, it will automatically download it. But to make demos faster, I usually do that so that I don't have to multiple times. I have to download it if, say, I have to roll back and all that. So we came out of the machine. Now we are checking the folder. So this Docker Compose is the one we have. So let's take a look at it. The last one, what we created was with SQL Server running. So this code is as it is. And we are adding a volume for Grafana, and we are adding the service for Grafana. We are running Grafana on port 5500, and I changed the version to 3.8, so this is the latest one. And what we'll do is we'll copy this container file, and then we'll basically execute it. So I check the file. I'm going to copy the file from my local client VM to the SQL Server. And the file is copied. Let's make sure validate the content of it. You can see Grafana drive local is there. So this is good. Grafana port is there. So the file is transferred here. Now let's connect to the virtual machine, Ubuntu 1. And then check any containers are there. You can see no containers here. You can check what is running here. And now you can see only SQL 1 is running. So we rolled back to the pre-SQL, post-SQL state. And that way SQL is what we configured in the previous series. So now we are starting from that point onwards. First thing, we are going to use the Docker Compose to up all the services in the Composer file. And there you go. Now you can see SQL was already running, but it found a new service, Grafana, with the new Docker Compose file, and it started it. So service up, let's make sure service is up. And you can see now Grafana and SQL both are running. Grafana is running on 5500. So we can now visit to this link, and you can see on 233 IP 5500 we have it. First time we'll put admin as the password. It will ask you to change the password. We'll put our new password here. We are using a test password in this whole series to simplify the process. It's not a best practice, as you know. And we enter into the Grafana. So this is the basic Grafana panel. You can create your any kind of dashboards around it. But to do that, we first need to create a dashboard. Data source. Let's click it, add data source, go to SQL side, click Microsoft SQL Server. This is the SQL Server we configured in the last episode. And as you can see, if I go to SQL Server, I can see my SQL Server connector working here. Now it's green, and we can see a test DB is what we created. If I expand the tables, there is nothing here right now. So we're going to create some table here and access it. So let's copy the SQL Server connection information. We'll use testdb as the database name, and as usual we use the SA passwords to do everything here. As I said, this is simplification of the demo, not the best practice. You should not be doing in production. Alright, let's save and test, and the connection is okay. Now we can go back to the home page and click on add panel, add new panel. And here I keep things simple, usually a code which we care. So let's go to SQL Server base DB, and we created this table here. So let me copy this, paste it here. Let's run a query. It doesn't have the data, so probably since we rolled back it, we lost the data. So let's go ahead and create the table and data. I try to execute. It's asking SQL container, default, SA, yes. And we can see the command completed. Let's insert this data and execute it. And we can see the output is coming. So we're gonna have to run the same query again. And it's asking us what kind of, how you wanna present the data. So this is SQL, so let's pick the SQL. And panel title is there. You can change the title there. Detail. And once you click apply, and you can see your first panel in the dashboard is added. So the same thing, just to give you another example, we can move it here, and I can add another panel here. Say we use the same code, paste it there, but this time when I'm executing it, I say visualization suggestion, and can tell us this is how the data would be looking. So this looks very interesting, probably not relevant for this demo, but this chart is good. So let's see how this chart will look, and you can see that it's sorted out data based on the numbers we have, right? And you can give it some name. You can save, you can apply, and there you go. Now your dashboard has two different views for the similar data. And the same way you can add different queries, connect to any kind of database, whether it's Postgres, SQL, MySQL, Oracle, and you can fetch the data and you can present it any way you want. Now, when you're doing the presentation, there are a lot more to it. So Grafana, so the session is not for that. You can do the transformation here. You can go further and make a lot of changes and do that. But it's usually preferred that if you're doing whatever the transformation needed into the database itself, and then you're using the view to present the data here, that way things would be much simpler to implement. Well, so that was the demo for Grafana. Let's see if we have anything else left. So we did the Grafana demo. You can connect to the Docker container to Grafana and check the ID. You can see user ID is 472. So we're getting some permission issues. That's what you might need. And I'll exit from it. And before we close this session, I want to connect to the PROXMOX container, PROXMOX database, server. We'll check what all is there, and we can see PostSQL is there. But now, since we are done with Post Grafana, so let's delete the PostSQL statement because Grafana is working with SQL Server. So at this point, we want to take a snapshot so we know that all the data we have. So I'm going to click delete a snapshot. So we deleted it, confirm it. Again, current. Now we want to make sure that we say we are at a stage where we define Grafana. So I'm going to create a new snapshot with Post Grafana SQL. So now when we meet in the next video, this is where we will start. So we can now go ahead and we will install probably Postgres or some other tool add on to this Docker container. See you then. And anyway, if you like this video, learn something from this video, make sure to like it, subscribe it, and share with your friends. Thank you.